this short video.
This meeting will be conducted as a Zoom webinar to allow for public participation and comments. The Contra Costa Transportation Authority does not condone hate speech in any form. We continually strive to make life better for all members of our community and create an atmosphere where everyone feels a sense of safety and belonging. We ask that anyone who wishes to speak does so with civility, respect, and kindness for others. Public speakers will have up to 3 minutes to speak. The chair will call upon public speakers at the appropriate time. Each public speaker is requested to state their name and organization, but providing such information is voluntary. Public speakers who wish to speak in person should submit a public speaker card to the clerk. Public speakers participating by Zoom who are wishing to speak should use the raise hand feature or dial *9 if participating via phone. Written public comments received in accordance with the teleconferencing special notice on the meeting agenda will be provided to the members. If authors of any written correspondence would like to speak during the meeting, they should raise their hand or submit a public speaker card. Thank you for participating in a meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority.
Emily, could you please conduct roll call?
Member Ash,
Here.
Member Carr,
Present.
Member Erickson,
Here.
Member Esquivel, here. Member Miller,
Present.
Member Patel,
Here.
Member Saunders,
Here.
Member Shakaran,
Here.
Member Stark,
Here.
Vice Chair Esselsago,
Present.
and Chair Lovejoy.
Present.
Hey, we do have a quorum with members Bankert, James, and Vedantam, and Wayne absent.
The next item on the agenda is public comment. Emily, have we received any public comment?
We have no public comments, written or virtual.
Okay, and is there any member of the public here tonight?
We have no public comments.
Okay. So the next item on the agenda is the consent calendar, which includes the summary of actions from the September 24th meeting and acknowledgement of the member attendance log.
So moved.
Okay. Emily, have we received any written public comments?
So did we have a second to that?
I was going to
thank
weigh
you.
in, but I was going to wait for the public comment solicitation. But I'll second the motion to approve them as they were written in the record.
Thank you, and we do not have any public comments, written or virtual.
Okay, thank you. So I have a motion by Member Ash and a second by Member Miller. Emily, could you please conduct a roll call vote?
Member Ash,
Yes.
Member Carr,
Aye.
Member Erickson,
Yes.
Member Esquivel, Member Miller,
Aye.
Member Patel,
Abstain.
Member Saunders,
Yes.
Member Shakaran,
Yes.
Member Stark,
Yes.
Vice Chair Esselsago,
Yes.
Chair Lovejoy.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously with Member Patel abstaining and members Bankert, James, Vedantam, and Wayne absent.
Okay, we will now move to the regular agenda items, of which we have two. The first item is an informational item that will be introduced by Matt Kelly and presented by Brian Kelleher.
Thank you, Chair Lovejoy. Good evening, committee members. Matt Kelly, Acting Director of Planning for the Authority. Very happy tonight to have our CFO, Brian Kelleher, here, along with, well, I'll let him introduce his staff who's here. Several months ago, a request was made by a member of this committee, I can't remember who it was at the time, but for a kind of a financial update. Where's the authority at on their finances, and especially focusing in on sales tax revenues. That Measure J is all about half-cent sales tax, so we are constantly tracking the trends and seeing where our revenues are coming from, but luckily we've got the guy who's got his finger on the pulse of sales tax in Contra Costa County. So Brian, why don't you take it away?
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Chair and members. I'm very pleased to be here in front of you tonight to talk about Measure J sales tax. Obviously, you guys all know what Measure J and the sales tax is as you volunteer your time here. So on behalf of the authority, I appreciate that. And so, again, it was passed in 2004. It runs through 2034. It's a, why is this little video there? All right. Sorry. And then the Measure J strategic plan guides the timing of the Measure J expenditures. You guys vote and give recommendations, and we appreciate that. Measure J pays for the debt service costs, so we did a capital program where we went out and we capitalized on all of the revenue through 2034 so that we can build some of these larger construction projects. All the debt service is collected from the sales tax, pays directly to the bond agencies. Let's see, what would other be good information for you? The advancement of the funds that we talked about, the capital projects. We also have a huge return to source, the local street maintenance. And there's a good slide for this on here. The bus service, 8.4%, transportation for seniors, 6.2%. The congestion management, transportation planning and facilities is only 3%. Administration is 1%. And as far as sales tax goes, in your board report, there was a staff report that we put together that we give to our board on a quarterly basis. But I thought this slide would be interesting because every single county is a little bit different. The transaction tax for CCTA has increased quite a bit with the online sales. And so through the pandemic, the sales tax has gone up about 20% based on just the online sales. And all of us see the Amazon trucks in our neighborhood and all the different things, and people aren't going to the stores as much. And so that's probably one of our largest sales tax vendors. Another large sales tax contributor to the county is your Costco with the gasoline. And the business industry, the restaurants have obviously come back since the pandemic. And so from a year-to-year basis, we're slightly down 1.5% on everything that's reported. We had a really good growth coming out of COVID. And so things are leveling off at $120 million for last year. We put our budget together for this year. It's another $120 million. But what I wanted to put together for you is we do a strategic plan. And every 2 to 3 years, Hisham Noemi in our engineering department, he'll put together a strategic plan. What are we going to fund through 2034? What are we going to fund in the next 5 to 7 years? And so what I do is I work with HDL. And so all of the cities, a lot of the cities in the county, they use HDL for their property tax and their sales tax assumptions and other tax that you might have in your city that they help you with. And so when we put this together, we try and project our growth. And as you can see in the bottom right-hand side of the slide, you'll see $2.7 billion of revenue generated through Measure J. Our projections moving out for the next several years is about 2.7, 2.8%. As you look in prior years and you look all the way back to 2011, you can kind of see some stronger years and as the economy has changed and things like that. So our outlook is always, I want to say, on the conservative side. You can't really be too aggressive because then what happens is you're planning out, you know, when you're working with the cities and you're overcommitting, and then you have to come back. And one of Hisham's roles is he's got to come back to the individual cities and individual areas in the county and say, we overprojected, so now you got to give up your bridge. Now you got to give up your walkway. Now you got to give up your ped bike and your TLC projects and things like that. And so, you know, hopefully this gives you a little bit of the insight to what CCTA does on the finance side in regards to projecting the sales tax, the allocation of the sales tax. But most importantly, I'm here because I would love to answer any questions that you have related to the sales tax or how it all works or anything else that you need from the finance department. Yes?
I know that there's conversation going on that you're going to be looking at, it goes up to
It goes out to 2034, correct?
March 31st of 2034.
And then you're putting together another proposal to extend some sort of revenue, correct?
They're
I mean,
currently working on a countywide transportation plan.
Yeah.
And then the next steps is a tax expenditure plan, and then there's, a bunch of legal things that need to happen in order for us to move down that road. But I think the goal is to eventually get there.
So my question is can you explain why they kind of use a sales tax? Because of like all the taxes, that seems to be the most regressive type of tax. That it's the most regressive type of tax. And so I'm curious when we look at the funding, like does Richmond, or can you look at communities as far as, are they getting back kind of the same percentage that their sales tax are being put in, or is like Concord getting less? Like they might have more sales tax revenue than another community. Does that make sense? Like are more affluent communities getting more income than their sales tax, or is it pretty evened out?
Yeah, when you look at the county as a complete, there's cities that generate a lot more sales tax, right? Because if you think of like a large city that has your department stores, because that's point of sales, right? You have car sales that does return to the residents. And so if you have a larger population, they may be spending the most money on gas or ordering on Amazon or buying bigger purchases, and it all comes into to all of that. But when they put the tax expenditure plan together, they divided it up into the 4 regions, and every region got a return to source percentage. And so if you look at East County, they didn't get as much program funds because they swapped out their program funds for capital funds to build Highway 4. And so the return to source is there, and it's all done in calculations and things like that that's in the tax expenditure plan. I hope that answers your question.
I guess
Or were
so.
you looking to see if we're trying to do something besides?
Sales
Sales
tax
tax.
as far as the new tax, like a more kind of equitable or progressive tax, I guess.
Yeah, I think you would have to be more on the legal side of that because, as a voter and a resident of the county, would you want them to tax your property? And then, maybe not everybody owns property, but they, and so how do you create that piece? So I don't want to go in too many different directions, but I know they are thinking of other ways of doing things, but I wouldn't suggest doing anything. Me personally wouldn't suggest doing anything other than the sales tax.
I was wondering how you came up with the 0% next year, the 2%, is that like kind of an inflation projection? Where do those forecasts come from?
So the forecast is developed by HDL. They work with Beacon Economics. Which is part of the UCLA Economic Department. And they go and they put together a forecast and they take out every single category in there for the county, and then they do projections. And so their projections on gas, where is gas going to go? Your projections on inflation and the tariffs and all those other things. How is that going to increase and decrease a number of things? And so when we got our projections for the year we just finished, they were projecting 120, it was like 119.8. And so, let's just round it up to $120 million. And so that's what we ended up doing last year. And I think we exceeded the budget by about $83,000 or something like that. And so our projection for next year is we left it at $120 million for the 26 year. Right now we're trending, we have only received 2 payments on this fiscal year, but we're trending about 4% over last year. But a lot of things, we're heading into the holiday season. And so when you look at the graphs that we have for sales tax, there's a lot of sales tax growth during the holiday season because everybody's shopping. And then if gas prices, you have the winter blends and the extra cost for the gas. And so it goes up there. And then, with a lot less people may be driving than it used to be. With the work from home situation, so that's all factored in there. So it's not an easy thing for finance to do, but we rely on the consultancy do it for all the other cities in California and things like that. So they're always pretty darn close, and their property tax projections as well is pretty good too.
Yeah, very complex. Yes, Member Sanders.
So those are big, fairly big numbers, so it sounds like, within a few years, you're relatively accurate and this forecast works. If you go back 5 years, are you close? Were those projections for last year at 120 close? Or when you go back to the beginning of it, what were they projecting for now? Because, it's huge growth, since 2005. So I'm just interested in how close we were to what everybody thought originally, or this has been a really good thing for, at least CCTA and being able to get money, back for transportation.
So a lot of it, the normal years that we're having, like the last couple of years, we were really close to the projections and have exceeded in a couple of years. But as you know, as we're looking at the economy into the next year, we still don't have, the government shutdown is still down. How does that impact the economy in the next, our 120 million? What if everything shuts down and there's more people that are out of work? And then no people, we're a bedroom community, so nobody's out shopping, nobody's out working, all of those things. And so we might end up at 110 million, 117 million dollars, but we have a reserve fund set up to cover the years that we receive less. And the years that we're a little bit over the budget, we put some money into the reserve funds as well to save so that we can continue. And all of those monies that are put into reserves, those stay with the individual 29 different categories that we have that we pay out for Measure J. So it's if we earn extra, it just means extra in the pocketbooks in the futures for every one of those programs. When they did the initial Measure J projections for sales tax, it was much higher than where we are today because they had some larger growth that was in there. And I don't think anybody saw what was happening in 2008, the housing collapse in there. And so with the COVID piece, we thought I came back and I adopted a budget $20 million less than we did, only to know that online shopping went through the roof and everybody was still spending because that is Contra Costa. We're a ton of people and a ton of homes and, 1.1 million, a little over 1.1 million people. And so everybody was still spending. Everybody was still doing home improvements. Interest rates were extremely low. People were out buying, remodeling, redoing everything that they could if they had the opportunity to.
Any other comments? Member Ash?
So talking about those predictions, a lot of the cities in the area are talking about the 5-year, 10-year trend where sales tax will be down overall. You combine that with the onset of electric vehicles, so the gas tax and better fuel efficiency, gas tax is coming in less. There's cars that any electric vehicle hasn't been paying that. I know there's the VMT. But how does that factor into your projections when you're bonding 10-year, 20-year projects if there is this downward trend overall on sales tax?
Are you speaking to directly bonding of future money on the projection of sales tax, or? I just wanted to clarify what your question was.
Let's start with that. Maybe it's a two-part question, right? Part one, I think, is that. Part two is just, if there is a longer-term revenue decrease, how does that impact overall business for CCTA? And then part two is, how do you project if next year you need to bond $100 million for a new project, let's just say as an easy example, right? How do you do that with that long-term projection possibly going down?
I'll take the easy part in that question on the bonding side. Is all of our bonding is done. We're not going out and going to be doing any more bonding with the Measure J revenue source. And when you do your bonding, you work with the underwriters and you work with the financial advisors, and then you meet with the like Fitch and S&P to get your bond rating. CCTA is triple A rated for both agencies, and they bond on the revenue, the most current revenue that you have in that particular year. And so they don't base it off of any projections that you may put in front of them. It's off of the money that the latest year of audited year of financials. And so how do we CCTA manage the ebb and flows of the sales tax revenue is all into the way we have our return to source funds paid out. When we pay all of the cities, the local street maintenance, that's 18%, and then all the other cities except for the East County, they get 2.09%. It's based off of the actual sales tax revenues collected. So you never overpay. And so with all the bus agencies that we pay, we always pay them 90%. And then when we clear up and we get all of our funds in August, we do a reconciliation and then we pay them off so that we're never overpaying or underpaying any of the individual agencies. And so our goal is to get to 120, and if not, there's not a lot of financial loss. The only time you can have a huge financial impact is when, I mentioned earlier, when we work and we say we're going to collect $2.648, billion, and so we schedule out projects and programs to allocate all of those funds out. And then if we had another downturn in the economy and we were going underneath and we weren't going to be close to that revenue number, then we go into removing projects from individual cities. And as we're getting really close to 2034, all of our the major capital projects are done, but it will be some cost to some remaining projects that are left to be built. But again, there's a huge portion, over 50, I think it's about 55%, that is all programs related, and it's all cash in, cash out related to these programs and cities that are benefit of it. Did that kind of get you? I felt like it was a tough question that I don't think I understood it specifically to answer 100%.
I guess, right, I'm hearing from cities that projected revenues going down long-term. So how does that impact everything, right? If people are buying less cars, if people are buying less stuff at Christmas, so I was just curious to sort of maybe get your take on it.
One of the slides I had up there, I can show it again. Again, it's very conservative, 2.75% growth for the next, 9 years that we have left. And I think that's a fair estimate. If I went back and I looked historically, we're a little over 3% if you take every single year since 2009. And so it used to be a long time ago when we were doing financial forecasting, you would use a 2% rule of increase every year because inflation, everything costs more. So people are going to spend more money. So they may know something that I don't know, but there's nothing that really is showing. And we never know the next thing that's around the corner that's going to be a major impact. If we did, we'd be very smart individuals.
And just some follow-up questions on you said something about East County with 2%. Can you explain that?
So we have a return to source, and so there's 29 individual categories in Measure J. And one of the categories in there is return to source. So all of the cities in the county get 18% of whatever our total revenue is return to source for your streets program. And then there is a sub-regional 2.09% that all of the cities get. And so like the city of Walnut Creek, they get 2.9% of that total revenue that returns to their city to pay for the streets. That's on top of the 18%. So your city gets 20.09% for those two programs. And then it's based off of population and road miles for each individual city on that as well. Matt is our resident expert on that. But when East County, when they were putting together the 2004 measure, East County said, hey, we got a one lane highway that goes each way. We want to give up that return to source in future years so that you can help us build this, beautiful freeway out to the east and between ECRFA and state and federal funds, and that's what built the highway. Anything else, Matt?
I just wanted to know, so when you guys make your recommendation of approval, you're recommending that 18% return to source, or as you guys know it, LSM funds to go back to the cities. But in most cases, except for the 4 East County cities, you're actually giving them 20.09% back, and it's just the East County cities who are only getting 18%.
I was wondering if you could go back to that slide that shows the percentage breakdown. My question was about, the other 80% and how that was allocated or, determined. Yeah.
This
so,
slide?
Yeah, so how was it determined that, 8% would go to bus service and 6%, how are those allocations decided?
So before they did the tax expenditure plan that went to all of the individual cities and the groups that worked on this individual measure, they put the 29 different categories in there. So there's a bus service, there's a sub-regional bus service, there's a transportation for seniors with disabilities, and there's a couple different programs that roll up under, like Lowell Street Maintenance 20.1. There's 2 different programs of the 29 different categories that roll into that. And it was all worked on before you get it to the ballot. It's an agreed upon through all of the city managers and the cities and the council members and the general public that weigh in to create these things. And so that's how all of these projects and programs. And so when they do the current countywide transportation plan, once they finish that, then they're going to go into a tax expenditure plan. They're going to do a call for projects. They're going to look for, what do you want to build? What do you want, another 5th board? Do you want X? Do you want Y? And then what other programs do you want? And so all of those numbers are fluid until the end of the day, everybody sits down and agrees upon, hey, we want more bus service, or we want more roads, we want more return to source, we want, whatever it may be in transportation that you're looking for and the general public is willing to vote for.
Got it. Yeah, thank you for that explanation.
And I'll just add on that when you look at the expenditure plan, it is broken down by sub-region. So you'll see that, maybe in West County, they've devoted more, bus service in their part of the county, whereas in another part of county, they may have a smaller percent, but Brian combines all these countywide, so those are how everything, falls out countywide. But there are differences from sub-region to sub-region.
I have to thank all of you, the questions. I have been presenting sales tax to the board for a very long time, and this is the most questions I've ever received, so thank you. I love it.
All right, with that, did we have any other questions, comments? Yes, Member Miller.
Just one quickly, thank you. And so that, in a way that we can be the best representatives that we can of the interests of our cities as we present information that we receive here back to our councils and so forth. Things like, well, I'll tell you what the top line question is. The top line question is, in the capital projects, what are the interfaces, the best interfaces that cities have in coming to propose like smallish projects? I'm kind of talking about, does Complete Streets fit in here, or is that a state thing? Or I'm looking for these ways that the cities can feedback their smaller needs so that they might be considered as part of the capital projects or whatnot, if they don't fit neatly into one of these categories, but instead is more like a, we'd like to do Complete Streets around this school or something.
Another great question. As Brian mentioned, all this was crafted before 2004, so Complete Streets wasn't even a concept then. Maybe it was for some folks, but it certainly didn't have a name. So what we do, so you see the categories, pedestrian, bicycle, and trail facilities, and transportation for livable communities. Those are both grant programs that every several years we do a call for projects. And so jurisdictions can submit new projects, and generally, there's anywhere from, say, several $100,000 to, a few $1 million available each year to be spread around each subregion. So the subregions are able to direct money towards new projects. And then, so we have that call coming in 2026. So there will be a new round of that, as well as another round of OBAG, One Bay Area Grants, which comes from MTC, but we administer. So you're going to see two large call for projects that will fund projects like the ones you mentioned that aren't part of the measure.
Yeah, I was aware of the OBAG, but didn't really think about how the money is administered straight through here. But yeah, I appreciate the answer. Thank you, guys.
My last question, do you mind putting the other slide so I can write some numbers down while I ask the question? No, they'll decrease and increase, I think, due to EV. But my question I was thinking that 1% for administration, I wonder if the CCTA can coordinate best practices with the city so that we can save money. I think we always say integrate the street signaling. When the cities present their plans, we're asking about communicating with each other on the project so that they're all well coordinated. But we do sometimes work in silos, so I'm wondering if you sometimes coordinate, the controller, so that we're all synced and it's cheaper for the city, so we can save money, be more efficient. If there's an opportunity for that with the measure, for all these programs.
So I would say overall, there's not, we don't have any, we don't have any sort of role in on the financial side, really. But what we do try and do is when there's an opportunity, we do try and combine, say for a pavement program, getting Walnut Creek, Pleasant Hill, and Concord together to go in on a single contract for the, efficiency of scale.
Right.
So that does happen, and we will coordinate on that, yeah.
Oh, that was it. Other than in the handout, what does HDL mean, or? Is that?
HDL is, it's the name of the three partners that started it a long time ago. And so at the top of my head, I don't remember them, but I have met all three of them about 25 years ago, but I don't remember the exact names. So
Okay.
it's a very, very highly rated firm by a lot of cities and in the county as well. They use them for sales tax collection. They work on the sales tax. They're a huge advocate for CCTA, and so if you open up a business and you have one in Contra Costa County, and then you've also opened up, or if you are a city, you open up one in Walnut Creek, and then you have another one in Concord, and then you do your sales tax reporting on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis, and they say, hey, we see that you have two businesses, you got to report in each individual city, so they help recoup the funds for the individual city, because if you're a city, you want every penny that you get. For us, it doesn't matter if it's in Concord or if it's Walnut Creek, it's all part of Contra Costa CCTA, because we have a half cent, and so we collect on it. It doesn't matter where, but they help us if it's in the wrong county or if they're reporting it differently. And so they do a lot of research on the location of individual businesses, things that come in, point of delivery, and things like that. And they do a lot of that on the sales tax.
Thank you very much. But don't forget to change the slide.
And then Member Stark, did I see a hand? Oh, okay. Member Carr?
Yeah, Matt, and I know you've told me this or told us all this, and it's slipped my short-term memory. When in earnest does whatever it is, Measure AA or BB, the replacement of Measure J, kind of when does that begin in earnest and the planning around that?
Yeah, we don't know what the letter or letters will be in front of it. Hopefully it's J again, and we'll get lucky, or JJ, something like that. So the planning has begun through the countywide transportation plan, but that's, a very conceptual plan. The boots on the ground is the Transportation Expenditure Plan Development, the TEP. That process has actually, our board has given us the approval to start that. We are putting together a team right now, hopefully taking that team to our board next month and bringing those consultants online. It's a mix of polling, strategic consultants, and then transportation, modelers and things like that who will be analyzing the projects that go into this. So yeah, so over about the next year, you're really going to see that ramp up.
Any other questions, comments? Yes.
Yeah,
Member
one
Patel.
question. Could you go back to the slide with the different programs that you had? Yeah, I heard you mention that the capital projects bucket is pretty much all expended. But did I hear right that the other programs are still ongoing, or there's still call for projects in the other programs? Matt, was that?
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting.
I mean, there is, so when we bonded up to 42.5% of future revenues at an estimated of, $120 million or different things like that in prior years and when it was lower. And so as sales tax has grown, there becomes more money available because your debt service. And so there is money set aside for additional capital projects. And so just in capital projects, there's probably, our large capital projects, which are your capital projects 1 through 9, and then you have your BART projects. You also have some other special project areas in there. So those are all still ongoing. But a lot of the things we do, and the number one thing that we've done for the capital projects is we go out and we seek grants. And so when you have grants, and so if you ever hear someone at CCTA talking, it's like a 3-to-1 ratio. For every dollar we earn, or we bring in, we also go out and get federal and state and local funds to help build these projects. And so, there's a lot of work done in the planning department to get things almost shovel ready, and then you get the grants. And the way it works with the grants is if you're ready to go, you're going to get it a lot quicker than somebody else. So sometimes it is, all the extra push that we're doing here and that you guys are helping us with that helps us get all this done.
That's interesting. As part of the next expenditure plan development, is there, I'm sure there is, but are there graphics and things that you'll be preparing that would show how much the sales tax leverages in regional and federal money that comes back to the county? I think that would be a really good story for taxpayers to
Yeah,
understand.
and that's how we put together kind of our budget for what we can pay for over in a next measure. We're basically, okay, we know, if we bring in 120 million a year through the sales tax, then we know we can kind of triple that budget for our ultimate overall budget. So instead of, Measure J is supposed to be around 3.2 million, we've always looked at kind of a $9-10 billion package based on that.
Go ahead. I think Member Miller, go ahead.
Mine's quick and right in your ballpark. So let's say that there's a drop-off in sales tax next year or something, whatever, unforeseen. Are you allowed, as the entity that you are, to do some sort of reserving such that you've got some percentage that you can kind of hold out to the side, such that you can accommodate for a miss in estimated revenue?
No, that's a great question. And so as we went through the pandemic and we did our sales tax projections, and I mentioned earlier, it was like $20 million less, and we only lost like $3 million less than what our original projection was. In 2022, we came back to the board and we approved a reserve policy. And so in that reserve policy, we've gained revenue over the years. And so we have close to $19 million set aside just in case. And so For those of you who seek to work at a city or sit on a city council, a lot of cities will have a 20 or a 30% reserve policy. And that's to, guarantee. And so all of the money that we've put aside that's in those reserve policies, that's in all of those categories, Yuli, my finance manager, she gets to track all of it, and every single one of those categories that has money is earning revenue. And all of that money is like individual checkbooks. And so we have about 30 individual funds that we track money for. And when we're all done in 2034, and when all of these programs are done, all that money will be delivered to produce everything that was set aside to do. And so that's how that'll work.
Thank you.
Let me go to Member Eselsago, or Vice Chair.
Thank you for the presentation, by the way. It's very, very insightful. My question is, what is your sentiment? So I read those two HDL reports, and I understand it from how I interpreted it, but just from your perspective, what should I take away from it?
There's a lot of information in there, but the most important thing that you can take away from there is how do you look compared to last year? And so another report that's not in here that I get, there's a lot of confidential information I get because I can look up individual cities and all those other things. But the biggest comparison, and when you're trying to compare counties, and then Contra Costa trends almost the exact same as the state of California. You have different cities. Alameda, there's a lot more people, there's a lot more industrial, there's a lot more business, and so their percentages in the good years, they're always trending higher, but when there's the down years, they have a lot more loss. You look at San Francisco, you look at Napa, you look at the other transportation agencies, and you're always kind of looking to see where we're going. And so, the biggest number is maybe, we're down $1.8 million or $1.9 million in the year before. We had already budgeted it was going to come down, and so you can kind of see the trends of each of the individual pieces, and you can look at it from your own personal thing. People aren't buying as many cars. That could be advantageous to you. You might want to buy another car, right? There might be more on the lot. I don't know. What's good to see is restaurants and hotels, because you think of all the people that work there, that, we're very fortunate to live in an area where a lot of people are still really busy and going out and purchasing food and doing those sort of things. So, you're in very good hands living in Contra Costa County. It's a very good county to be in, related to, all of the different counties that we have in California.
Member Ash.
Thanks. So 19 million in reserve, is that earning interest? How's that invested? And any other money coming in that could also be working to increase your revenue?
Our goal is to always put extra money in there, but our number one goal is to deliver on all of our projects and programs. And so, think of it from the bus agency's perspective. If I was to come in and put a budget in at $120 million and pay out on $120 million, and then I got $140 million that year, they wouldn't get the money. And so what you have to do is you return to source. And so when the individual cities go out and they want to do their potholing, they want to know how much money they're going to get. I can't tell you how many cities, there's probably like 3 or 4 that call every year, what are our projections for next year? Because they want to go out and do as many street miles as they can. Because if you give them the most accurate budget, they're going to spend every single penny to work on their individual city. The interest that we earn, we're very conservative. We invest in, it's a state of California local agency investment fund. It's more of a money market. It only pays out at a little over 4%. But when you think back probably 3 years ago, we were ordering 0.25% on that money. And so when you have $100 million sitting there, you're earning nothing. And so now we're earning 4%. We also have, we have a portfolio and we buy bonds, and the 95% of it is probably US Treasuries. It's guaranteed. You're only earning 4.25%. We have an investment policy that we bring to the board every June. Many agencies a long time ago got themselves into trouble investing and doing things, and then the economy changes and you could put yourself in a very awkward position. But this is your money, your city's money, and we're doing the best we can to earn extra money so that we can pay for extra, but make sure that we don't do anything irresponsible to take away from your city.
4% is, and conservative, you know, in terms of its risk, like, that's great, so.
Any other comments, questions from the committee?
You know what, following up on the reserve, so assuming we're short 2% or 1% this year, do you make the cities whole compared to last year and remove the money from reserves? Or do you, I think you said we don't keep piling up the reserves.
So if our budget is $120 million for this fiscal year, if it comes in at $119 million, we will take $1 million out of the reserve, bring it to 120. So everything that we told the bus agencies, the cities, and the other agencies that get the pass-through get paid.
Thank you, that's it, I just want to make sure. Okay, thank you.
Okay, some really excellent questions and comments from this committee. Is there anybody from, have we received any written public comments, Emily?
We have no public comment, written or virtual.
I guess I'm supposed to say, if anyone from the public would like to speak, please submit a public speaker card or raise your virtual hand.
We have no public comments.
The next item is an action item that will be introduced by Matt Kelly and presented by Alan Shields. Thank you very much, Mr. Kelleher.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Chair Lovejoy. Good evening again. Once again, Matt Kelly with the authority. Happy to introduce the calendar year 2022 and 2023 Growth Management Program checklist from the town of Danville, one of 2 towns in the county, but also the 8th largest of our 19 jurisdictions. So we have from the, okay, I'll just talk for a minute. So we have on the transportation side, their transportation manager, we have Alan Shields. And I'll just let you know, this is Alan's first checklist because CCTA stole his predecessor from the town. But now we have Alan heading up transportation for the town, so that is great. And we also have the chief of planning for the town, David Crompton here. So if Alan is ready, I'm going to turn things over to him and let him walk you through the presentation of their checklist. You ready, Alan?
Absolutely. Thank you. Chair Lovejoy, committee members, first off, thank you for the opportunity to present the GMP checklist for the town of Danville. And thank you to each and every one of you for volunteering your time to participate with CCTA. As someone, and I'll give a little bit of an introduction on myself. So I'm Alan Shields. I'm the transportation manager for the town. I've actually been with the town for about 15 years. I've only been in this position for about 9 months. I'm here with my partner, Dave Crompton. He's kind of the opposite of me. He's been at the town for 30 years, and he's or over 30 years, and he's our chief of planning. So I don't think there's too many questions that you're going to be able to ask that he won't be able to answer. But the reason I want to express thanks to all of you is, you know, I'm a staff member here in the town. I'm a resident in the town. I've basically grown up in the county my whole life. So as someone that rides, that runs, that hikes, that, drives, I'm very appreciative of the efforts. And what you'll see as we go through this checklist is you're going to see your efforts volunteering with CCTA directly hitting the ground in Danville to support things like the Complete Streets program. And although we don't have a Complete Streets document, it's woven into our general plan. and that's in the attached packet that you have. It's in Chapter 4. And when we cover the project section, you'll see that there's a lot of these projects that really have a flavor of the multimodal engineering, where we're really looking out for all modes of travel. And it really makes for a great community. In those programs, you're also going to see a lot of our routes of regional significance. Those are going to be enhanced, and we've got some really good projects. So I can't wait to get to that portion. But let's cover the checklist portion first. I'll get it. So to cover the checklist items on the participation level, we are heavily participating in several areas. CCTA Board, the Innovate 680 Policy Advisory Committee. On the Tri-Valley Transportation Committee, or Council, we have, over the program period, we have implemented an action plan that specifically addresses those routes of regional significance. We did an SEP, a Strategic Expenditure Plan update in 22. We actually did another one in 24 that was adopted. And the reason I point that out, and I think my predecessor pointed it out a couple years ago, was there was some funds that were specifically listed for Innovate 680. It was $5.7 million, specifically for some Iron Horse Trail corridor improvements. During the reporting period, and you're going to see this over and over throughout the presentation, but I'll talk about the reporting period, but I'll also give you what the status looks like today. During the reporting period, we did our biennial counts, where we count the traffic and we look at level of service. We did it a couple years ago in essentially 22. We did it again at the end of 24, completed in 25. And all of our level of service, specifically on our routes of regional significance, have not been degraded. So we're maintaining those levels, which is a very good sign for us. We continue with our RTPC. We're participating with our SWAT, the Southwest Area Transportation Committee. To relieve congestion, we're participating with the Traffic Measure J Traffic Congestion Relief Program. We've actually increased the number of buses since the last time we reported. We've added a couple buses. We've added a few more routes, so we're at 26 buses, 35 routes, and we're serving 10 schools. And with some of the roads in Danville being as narrow as they are and as congested as they get in our schools, this is a huge measure for us. And so these funds go squarely into the pocket of relieving congestion and reducing all of those problems that congestion causes. The San Ramon Valley Street Smarts program, that's another program that's funded through Measure J funds, and it's been identified on our TVDC action plan. And this is really where I want to cover some of these projects, because I think this is what's exciting for us. This is where all of our efforts in this room combine to make a really great town and a really good regional partner here in the county. The Iron Horse Trail crossing improvements. If you've ever been on the Iron Horse Trail from city to city, from Pleasanton all the way to Concord, it looks different depending on where you're at. And in Danville, based on the design of Danville and how we kind of grew up as a town, there are a lot of crossings, and a lot of those crossings are in neighborhoods. They're preceded by winding roads. And what we're doing is we're installing enhancements. So in one of our projects, we're installing the rapid flashing beacons, and we're putting them up at 7 locations, but 5 of those are directly on the Iron Horse Trail. And what that'll mean, we've designed this project. We're in construction right now. We hope to be completed by January of next year. When that project is completed, what that will mean is you will not cross an Iron Horse Trail crossing in the town of Danville and not have some traffic control there. It's either going to be a signal or an RFB. And so for us, that is a huge increase in safety. The Diablo Road Trail, I know this was presented last time, but for those that aren't aware, this is a huge trail project for us. This is 30 years in the making. This has been on our trails plan. This has been in our action plan for several years. And through some good fortune, we were able to acquire some rights to land to build this trail. For the first time, we're going to be able to connect basically West Danville with East Danville and provide a very safe route for cyclists, pedestrians, hikers that want to go from our downtown area to Mount Diablo on Mount Diablo Scenic. Before, they were having to go on a 2-lane road on Diablo Road, which is a windy 2-lane road with high traffic volumes. This trail is going to relieve a lot of that stress for cyclists, pedestrians, and hikers. It's planned, we're through the process of environmental review, and we've actually started construction, actually this week. We're started with the potholing earlier this week. We expect to have this completed in winter of 2026. And if you look, what it's doing is it's actually going to combine two segments of trail that we either have had for some time, and that's the Barber Hale Trail. That's that half-mile segment between Green Valley and Fairway Drive. And then there's a developer-constructed segment that was constructed over the past couple of years in one of our new developments. And what we're going to construct using a significant amount of Measure J dollars is the segment that's in the middle. And frankly, that's the most complicated section because there's a portion that goes near a creek, and so there's a lot of retaining wall work there. But we're going to construct that 0.9-mile segment, and that will close that gap that's essentially existed since prior to the town being incorporated. Another project that we're actually excited about, and it's actually two projects. It's a smart signal and a signal monitorization upgrade. These ones are directly on our routes of regional significance, and those are on our north and south route, which is, you can call it many things as you go through the county, but we call it San Ramon Valley Boulevard, Harts Avenue, but it's kind of Contra Costa Boulevard south. And the other one is going to be on Sycamore Valley Road, and that's where we're upgrading. We're upgrading our signal detection. For a long time, we've used loops in the ground. We're going to be upgrading all of our signals to using cameras. Those cameras are going to help us to identify cyclists, pedestrians, and they're going to help us to manage our timing better for those. And it'll give us one thing that we've never really had before, which is it appears to give us the ability to count traffic. We've never had an accurate count of cyclists, and we're in a heavy cycling community, especially with Mount Diablo. So we've never been able to get a satisfactory collision rate per, 1,000 miles per million miles driven like we do for vehicle traffic. So we're pretty excited to be able to start taking a data approach where we can actually look and see what the clear picture for cycling is in town. The traffic signal interconnect, this is a pretty good project for us where we're going to have a fiber optic. We have a fiber optic master plan that's been designed. We've actually just completed phase 1, which is on our north-south leg through town. So that's the San Ramon Valley Boulevard, Harts Avenue leg. And then we're going to start phase 2 next year, along with one of our paving projects, which is going to start our fiber optics moving down to Sycamore. So far, we've connected 17 of our 56 intersections, and we're going to connect 6 additional intersections as we go east. And we were able to connect 5 of our buildings, which means for a significant number of our intersections, we actually have a fiber connection back to our town offices where we've got the ability to live stream the video from those intersections. So it's an excellent project when it comes to transportation. I've said those first 2 projects are pretty exciting. The third one on this sheet isn't as exciting, but it's quite necessary, and that's our battery backup systems. We had a lot that have, over time, have failed. Maybe they haven't had adequate runtime with the longer downtimes that we're seeing with public safety power shutoffs and things like that. So we're upping a lot of those that are aging and end of useful life. And what that's allowing us to do is in some of these intersections, especially our major ones, we're going from maybe a 2 to 3 hour battery backup time to up to close to a 10-hour battery backup time. So it's a significant program for us. This is a map of Danville, and it's a little bit dated, but I think it shows the picture that you've got that north-south corridor where you're seeing the fiber improvements. You're also seeing the traffic signal modernization, and then our future plan is what you see, the red dots, and that's the direction we're moving forward in the future, where we're working with CCTA on 2 of those smart signal projects where we're going to enhance the north-south corridor as well as the east-west arterial. Our pavement management, we're actually very proud of this, and I have to give kudos to our senior engineer, Nader Salama, and our city engineer, who have managed this program very well. Our goal is to keep it at 70. And I checked with Nader yesterday, and he informed me that we're at 81. And a lot of Measure J dollars go to that every single year. We have a very aggressive, proactive pavement management program in Slurry Seal. In this reporting period and slightly after, we were in either planning or construction for improvements along the San Ramon Valley Boulevard and Camino Ramon. And then next year, we're going to do a segment on Sycamore. Those are both, or all three are along our routes of regional significance. The townwide bicycle master plan, last time we were here, we presented on the fact that we had just completed that. We just hosted 3 meetings. And now I'm happy to say that we're about 50% through the implementation. So what this means is that when you come to Danville on your bike, that you're going to see more green infrastructure down. You're going to see, we're starting to put more buffered bike lanes in. In fact, on the boulevard, which, you know, that's a 45-mile-an-hour road, I think we get an 85th percentile somewhere in the neighborhood of about 50 on that road. We didn't have buffered bike lanes. Now you're getting 3+ feet of separation between the travel lanes and our bike lanes. So that's something we're very proud of. And we're looking as we go out east on Sycamore during our project next year, you're going to see that as well. We're also using some of the guidance that we have in MUTCD and NACDO, and we're putting some of the green in the intersection itself, so that as motorists come up to an intersection, they're very aware that there's going to be a bike that could potentially be crossing that path. So very, very excited about that. So here's what I want to show you. This is an interesting slide, and frankly, that photo on the right was repurposed from when Andy Dillard was here 2 years ago. But it's an important slide because that shows you the amount of infrastructure that we're putting in place. That is Diablo Road as it faces that Barber Hale Trail I mentioned earlier. So this is a kind of a confluence of several of our programs, all of them funded through Measure J funds, that lead to safer multimodal transportation. So this is how we get cyclists from Diablo Road onto that Barber Hale Trail. So you can see there's high visibility paint in the crosswalk. There's green thermoplastic for the bike infrastructure, and there's a nice bike box for our cyclists to post in and wait and lead that intersection through. In the bottom left slide, it's a little hard to see. I took that one at night, and I did that because I want you to see, even at night with headlights, you can see that big bike box that we have there is very visible. And that location is significant for CCTA because that is our Iron Horse Trail crossing at San Ramon Boulevard. So we've done a lot to highlight that section so that when we get our commuters and our teens and our cyclists going to and from school and work, that is a safe crossing now. It's much safer based on our following of our action plan. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to my partner, our Chief of Planning, Dave Crompton.
Thank you, Alan, and good evening, Chair and committee members. Pleasure to be here to talk a little bit about what's going on in Danville from a residential development standpoint. And just, going back a couple years now, we got our housing element approved by the state about 1.5 years ago, and about 2 years ago, we'd actually taken the steps to meet our RHNA. So we after a long process, we ended up rezoning over 70 different parcels throughout town from whatever they were to multifamily at least 30 units an acre. So that was to accommodate our 2,241 plus 15% buffer requirement. And I will say, since that time, we are seeing a stream of multifamily projects coming into town, and we've got a couple that have been recently completed and a number that have been approved and are about to be under construction. I'm just going to walk you through those, what the projects are, and maybe some, frustrations that we see as we're working through these. So okay. There we go. Okay, so this first project is, if you're familiar with Danville, this is right at the El Cerro northbound on-ramp, right before it goes underneath the freeway there. This is, there's a little single-story office building on the site now. And what you see here is a 4-story senior condo project. So it's about a 3-acre site. It's got, a creek running through there, so it's got some impacts there to overcome. So this is 99 units, it's 4 stories, it's for seniors only. Let me go to the next. Let's use the arrows. Sorry, so the last one was the site plan. This shows you a little bit more of a visual of what this building will look like. Any planners in the room here will understand the challenges that planners are seeing these days with our authority for design review and other things over new multifamily projects. This project was submitted under state density bonus law. And if you're familiar with that, that basically allows additional units to be provided in exchange also for affordability. And they can also ask for basically an unlimited number of waivers of development standards, such as height and stories and what have you. So this project is a senior project. Because it's senior, there is no affordable requirement. The state density bonus law also encourages senior projects, so there's no affordable requirement here. And what we're seeing, and this is an example of it, we're seeing density bonus projects without additional density units being requested. So this is right at the bottom of the density range at 30 units an acre out of a 30 to 35 zone. So they use the density bonus law to ask for waivers. So instead of 3 stories, this is 4 stories. Instead of 40 feet high, it's 50 feet high. And there's a waiver on floor area ratio and some other things. So it's a great project. There's a project very similar to it that's under construction by the same developer right across the freeway on West El Puntado. So this is, it's still a vacant piece of property. They haven't started yet, but this was approved about a year ago, and we expect it to start this year. And this is a really big project, probably the most controversial one that we have going on in Danville right now. This is the Town and Country Shopping Center. If you go down San Ramon Valley Boulevard towards the Livery and Mercantile there, this is a shopping center that has McCullough's and Walgreens, and in the very back there are 4 two-story commercial buildings. And so this project would demolish 3 of those 4 buildings and would build a 4-story apartment building on the site. So it's 200 apartment units. So this is a significant building in Danville. This is also a 4-story building. They're also using state density bonus law and waivers to go from 3 stories to 4 stories and from 40 feet high to 55 feet high. This is a project where they are asking for density bonus. They're actually asking for a 50% density bonus for the project, 50%. This is 50% density bonus. And so in exchange for the 50%, they have to do 15% of the units as very low income units. So we're getting about, it's the 50% is based on the base density before the density bonus. So we would get about 25 very low in household BMR units for this project. So this has been under review for a while. This has not gone through our planning commission or town council yet. We have had one design review board meeting. Under the Permit Streamlining Acts, cities are theoretically not allowed to look at subjective issues like design. We've been pretty lucky. I think the developers we've been working with have listened to our design comments and have made positive changes. So this one, to give you a flavor of what, wrong direction. This is kind of, this is a 3D model of what it would look like from the town and countryside, looking kind of southeast. So again, this is another 200 units, and all of these projects that I'm talking about were all RHNA sites. They were all sites that were redesignated for housing. And so, the state's emphasis on housing, it is working. We are getting housing development proposals and approvals that we would not otherwise have received. This is another senior project, and that's kind of we've had 3 senior projects like this. It seems to be the sweet spot for developers. This is another one that went density bonus without a density bonus and asked for waivers. And it's a senior project, so there is no affordable requirement. And this is actually an assisted living facility, 105 beds. If you know Danville, if you go out El Cerro to Diablo, there's a plant garden center there, Sloat Garden, And so it's about 3 acres, and this would replace the garden center. Unfortunately, it's, it's a popular little center in Danville. It's really well placed for the residents out there. This was actually approved in July, and that's what it looks like. It is 3 stories. It's only a few feet above our height limit. I think it will fit well into the neighborhood. The biggest constraint here is that being a nursery for so long, there's contaminants on site, and so there's remediation and toxic material removals underway before they can get building permits. But they have submitted for building permits, and so if you go out there in the next few months, you will see that start to be built. And the old Danville Bowl, who, some of you may have been there at some point in the past, right there by Lucky's. It was closed. I guess it's kind of in a state of disrepair over the last number of years, and so that has sold to a builder, and we have an application in. It's another state density bonus and permit streamlining SB 330 application. It's another one where they want waivers without actual additional units. So this is a 49-unit, 3-story townhouse project. It's right at the bottom of the density range of the 30 to 35. This is right at 30 units an acre. And this is in the planning process. It went through our design review board last week. It's going to come back for another look, and then on to planning commission and probably town council. It wouldn't go to town council unless it's on appeal, but that is highly likely. So those are the 4 I highlighted. We have at least 3 more that are in the pre-application stage, where we're looking at them at a staff level and kind of help guiding them. So, that's 3 more, and we recently completed a 37-unit mixed-use project downtown, right on Harts Avenue, where Foz Restaurant used to be. That's 37 condos. 5 of those were moderate-income units. And then there's the one I mentioned on West El Pintado by the freeway there. That was a 50-unit, another senior condo project with density bonus, with no density bonus, but with waivers. And we have a couple more that are in the pipeline that we're talking to developers about. So we are busy in my 30+ years there. Never had an influx of housing applications like this in this shorter period of time, and it's really, we've always been focused on Danville character and trying to, keep these. Yeah, our little village there. We're trying to, do our good planning and kind of not, from my standpoint, I've always seen my duties not messing up our beautiful downtown that we've inherited there. And so, we're really, I think our decision makers and our public are getting a kind of a dose of reality that, these are coming, and they're a good thing. They are going to provide additional housing and additional traffic, that will actually help our downtown businesses. So I think between the 2 of us, that ends our prepared presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you for the presentation. Any questions, comments? Ms. Erickson?
I do want to, I am a bicyclist, and having the increased safety is one of the reasons my husband and I, we live in Orinda, but we will often go down to Danville, on the weekends and stuff like that, to eat and bring business to you. I did have a question. I noticed that in your report, you were showing that vehicle ownership has increased quite a bit. It's up now 90% of the population have 2 or more cars. Are you expecting some of the multi-use housing or more dense housing to change that projections and to decrease some of your overall miles per resident driven?
It'll reduce the average. If you look at our VMT, our baseline VMT, it's based on mostly single family, which has a higher rate. And so all these multifamily, just from the get-go, they're going to have a lower VMT rate than the base rates that we have in Danville. So, we don't have the mass transits and even much of a headway on our bus lines, but, who knows with, the additional folks that are in downtown Danville and needing to travel wherever they might go, that might change over time.
And then I brought up that you've got kind of like your your bike and ped collision data on your website. So has a lot of your projects that you're looking at is making it safer? Is that kind of based on reducing those areas in particular?
So that data was done as part of our Bike Master Plan and our Bike Commission, so it was kind of a one-time shot to put some data out there. It was during a time where we were taking feedback as part of our Bike Master Plan. We usually don't publish because it's a heavy lift to publish that much data and to keep it published with the updates and validating the data and making sure that we're not releasing bad data. But as a general rule, we do take an approach that we try to find out where the accidents are occurring, what is the primary collision factor, and if there's an engineering solution to resolve that, we do that. We do work with our police department staff, and we also work with our fire staff too, because what we do find out, especially with bike collisions, is oftentimes there may be an injury collision involving a cyclist, and we, the town, may never hear about it because it never actually comes in as a collision. It gets treated as a medical, and then it's done, and so we don't know. So we have a good partnership with our fire department where we can find out where the collisions are occurring that they're responding to, where are the ones that we are responding to, and then we can look to address those. And it's not a surprise. Typically what we find out is it's our intersections, it's our areas of congestion, it's our downtown areas, and that's what you see in our Bike Master Plan, why we're focusing so much in making improvements along those arterials and our downtown corridors.
Just one final question, I'm sorry, because I know that Measure J funds, they are kind of allocated like 1.4% for ped and bike improvements. Are you seeing that you're allocating a higher percentage of your transportation dollars to the complete streets, kind of including better pedestrian and bicycling facilities?
Well, as far as the allocation, we follow the plan set forth in Measure J, and then we supplement it with our own funds. And so our maintenance of effort, whether it's on a pavement improvement project or if it's just using general funds to help support, like the Diablo Trail, I think we just allocated $1.7 million in general funds to help support, frankly, a big chunk that we got from Measure J. So we do follow the Measure J guidance and the breakdowns as we're supposed to, but we enhance those areas with our own funds. And let me just say thank you for coming and visiting and shopping and dining down there. This is my plug for Danville. We don't charge for parking. Feel free to come down. It's great. You can park right next to where you want to go.
Great farmers market too.
And the sales tax is still 8.75%, so you're saving 1 to 1.5% when you go to Costco in Danville.
Member Escalcego. Oh, I mean Esquivel, there we go.
Okay. Yes, thank you for the presentation. It was pretty good. And thank you for paving the streets. I'd love to hear that. And so I think I had like 3 questions, but just the first one, when you were doing the slide on the video cameras, and I think I heard you mention, did you say you're not using fiber for smart signaling?
Well, we have multiple projects going at the same time. We do have a fiber project. Frankly, it's a very heavy and expensive project to put fiber throughout the entire town. So what we started with were the areas that are most significant to us. So our downtown corridor, that's also a route of regional significance, so that impacts not just Danville, but the entire region. And then we're pushing out east on Sycamore, which is another one of our major arterials. So that's fiber. With the smart signals, we're using both frankly, with the smart signals and the video detection, we're trying to outfit all 56. What we're doing is based on priority. We're starting with our major arterials, those areas where we know we need the greatest amount of attention, and we're working out from there to kind of more of the local roads.
Oh, but the communications is through fiber. It's not Wi-Fi or radio or air communication.
Yeah, the current setup we're using, actually, the cameras can use cellular communication, and it's a part of the service that's provided by the vendor. But we can also then backhaul that data, that video feed directly to us in a higher resolution, should we choose to. So we're looking at both options, but we want to use the fiber as a more cost-effective option.
Correct. And I just love the picture of the detecting of the bicycles. So my comment earlier when I had asked about teaching other cities, like I would love that in El Cerrito. And I don't know if the engineers talk or if there's conventions, like if engineers and designers get together and are like, yeah, this is the latest technology and this is what we'd like to do. So I'm wondering if you share how effective it is and if other cities are implementing the same kind of system.
I can
for
maybe answer that in two parts, one with an anecdote and then two with the relationship side. The anecdote is, we actually do like them. That when we first rolled them out several years ago, and I'll give the kudos to Andy Dillard, our CCTA rep, who really has done all these magnificent things. It was a little bit buggy, and that was based on the camera detection itself, not the actual ability of the signal to light up. But what we appreciate about him is, and I just dealt with this week, actually at this intersection, so just to the right of the intersection that's up on the screen is Macaulay. One of our bike advocates, there's a trailhead right there, and one of our bike advocates was telling me, hey, when I go to make the left turn, I can see that the bike detection isn't picking me up because the light's not turning blue. The indicator isn't blue. So we get feedback from our community that tells us, yes, it's working, or no, it's not. And they don't have to wait at a light for 30 seconds to know it's not working. They can look and they get an indicator right there that their bike wasn't detected, and they report it to us. And we've got a good relationship with our county civil maintenance where we get out and we fix those. So we do like them, and we do know that our cycling community likes them as well.
Well, I think we'd like to invite El Cerritos DPW to come down and do a presentation on your technology. I like it, so thank you. That was my comment about that. The second question I had, I think it was, I guess the housing for assisted living. Do you think when will that be built if everything goes well?
As I said, they currently are remediating some hazardous materials, but they have submitted building permits. So I would expect they will be under construction in the next month or so. And you have a couple-year construction period.
2 years, so we'll have housing in 2 years?
Yeah.
That's pretty good, okay. Well, I think I forgot the third question. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Over here, yes, Member Saunders.
So just a quick question, kind of, it sounds, you're helping the housing plan, building more dense housing, that's all good. What do you think is the impact on jobs? I mean, you're kind of converting places that have some jobs, or maybe they were vacant and there were no jobs. But what's that trade-off, or is just the more housing going to make business better, which was kind of one of your comments, I think?
Well, I mean, you could go a lot of directions with that. When we were going through the process with ABAG on the methodology for how to distribute the RENA, there was a lot of talk about what to emphasize, and a lot of cities thought that, the housing should go where the jobs are. That should be the priority, so that, we don't put them all out in the suburbs where there are no jobs. But that didn't happen. A lot of the housing got put out more into the suburb areas, and it's a double-edged sword, because we are tearing down commercial buildings with restaurants and stores and what have you that maybe are the employees that would like to live in the homes that are going up there. So there's no doubt it'll help our core downtown area, but I think, we are losing some of those service jobs, and we're gonna, probably see more commuting.
Member Vice Chair Esselstego.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Just a few questions. The first one, referencing zoning and density increases. What infrastructural financing plans are supporting the higher density?
So when we did our housing element and we put together our RENA plan, we did a programmatic EIR. So, we looked at all the infrastructure impacts and what have you. Bottom line is that, we found we had some issues with, East Bay Mud said they didn't necessarily have sufficient water long-term. Greenhouse gases was a potential impact that was not mitigatable because we're putting more vehicles on the freeway. The bottom line is that we had to adopt a housing element, and we had to adopt statement of overriding considerations in those areas. We're confident that, all the housing units are in the service areas of all the utilities, and we're confident that they will all be served. And, while we did the programmatic EIR, each individual project, as they come through, they'll be, looked at again, and we'll consult with all the other agencies and utilities and what have you.
Okay, thank you. So I was thinking back to the HDO presentation prior, and I was just, well, so they talked about a surge in e-commerce, pool allocations, like the online shoppings, et cetera. So how is Danville adapting its retail mix to address it? Like brick and mortar, I guess they're declining, online's going up. So how are you all seeing that, addressing that, or taking into consideration?
Well, we are, like everybody, we are seeing a reduction in retail, both in tax revenues and in brick and mortar stores that we have downtown, and that's really the lifeblood of our core downtown is the retail and the restaurant. And we're losing retail, and the restaurants seem to continue to do very well, and personal services are doing very well. We've done things like amend our zoning ordinance, which in the past would only allow retail restaurant on the ground floor in the core downtown areas, to create things like blended uses where we want to see, you might have a retail store that has stations in it, chairs where you can apply products and, try to get experiences you can't get online. So we've amended our zoning code to create more flexibility in having those types of experiential uses that maybe aren't straight retail or restaurant, but introduce other types of complementary services to those.
Okay. And this is in regards to the regional mitigation fees. How are you recalibrating it to reflect construction costs related to inflation? Or how is inflation impacting some of your?
Yeah, I'm not involved in that part of it. I know that,
Okay.
We have set fees, impact fees for the, the Danville, the residential and the commercial transportation improvement fees. We have the regional and sub-regional fees. There are occasional reviews of those fees. There has to be nexus studies done and that type of thing. And I think they have been done on the regional levels, and something we've committed to do as part of our housing element implementation plan, to look at our mitigation fees at a local level. So, basically once they're set, unless they're have a built-in CPI escalator, they're pretty much set until you revisit them and do the nexus studies and show that the impact, the fees that you're collecting are equal to the impact that they're creating, so that the nexus is there.
So I can add a little bit to that. The regional, sub-regional, the SEC fees, I'm not as familiar with. Those are set. The TVTC fees are set based on a CCI adjustment that's reviewed by the board or the council every year. They use the San Francisco Bay Area CCI for, I think it's December. And then that can be what they use as the basis for adjusting that cost up or down. In fact, in this last year, it was a negative 0.7. And so the TVDC decided, instead of reducing the fees by 0.7, to just keep them flat year over year. But there is a review that happens once a year on those mitigation fees.
Okay, thank you. Last question. This is it. Kind of touching on that, I think one of the members mentioned that the two-car kind of average households, so each households have about 2 cars. How are you accounting for equitable mobility?
I'm not sure.
I guess, like, how would I say this? Like, transportation planning that benefits like the low income? I don't know how many low income residents are in Danville, but like the low income or like seniors, those that need transportation that may not have multiple cars in their resident.
Well, I'll give you the best answer I can on that one. So when we do an impact analysis, when we're putting in these different density of housing, we use an ITE assumption, which tells us how many trips that a given development might produce. When it comes to making, I guess we would call them more micro adjustments, we do work with CCTA on, I think, innovative projects. I know we're working on one for first mile, last mile. How do we connect someone that may not be a driver from their home to a transit center, to a park and ride, to a bus stop? And so we work regionally on some of those initiatives with CCTA. And then locally, you know, I think we're always trying to come up with a creative way on how do we help people that may have some mobility issues. Is there, with the micromobility trend that's happening right now, are there infrastructure improvements that we can make that would make that more desirable for someone, right? Not everybody can afford a car and the insurance and everything it takes to get that going, but a lot of people can afford a scooter. Maybe they can afford a class 1, 2, or 3 e-bike. And so if we believe that if we build the infrastructure, that it makes it, this is gonna sound a little silly, but makes it fun to actually be out there and gives you a sense of safety and security, then we're gonna create an environment where people are more apt to use those products. And so although we don't have a direct program that tackles that, we do work regionally and we do work locally based on the trends that we see within our community.
Thank you.
Just to add to that just a little bit, and you know, regarding the equity, it is, the fees are based on trip generation from a project, and so a good example, because we were just going through this here recently, is for, you know, an assisted living facility. Those, you know, folks, most of them aren't driving and has very low trip generation, so their fees are going to be very low. So it's based on their impacts on our roadway system based on the vehicle miles traveled.
Member Miller?
All right, thank you. Ed Miller from Clayton. And Ms. Shields, don't be offended. I think a lot of the questions are landing on the other side of the fence because transportation seems to be uninterestingly well handled. So that's a great, you know, compliment to you. By the way, the 81%, that's just, wow, it's a phenomenal number that you guys are maintaining for the PCI. I have one question which is around well, I mean, all of us, I've been on a planning commission as well. All of us have dealt with the whole having to put the RENA in and everything. And you guys have sort of found some unicorns here in the sense of, from the very first moment that I saw the second proposal and it was another senior housing unit, I'm thinking of all these complications that had come up in our own jurisdiction. And I'll mention one specifically in a second, but, and they just don't apply to these senior projects. So now I'm going to mention that specific concern, and I'm going to talk about the one that's on Village Parkway. I think that was the name of the street that it was on, Village, or the Village. It's called the Village, sorry, not Village Parkway. So on that one, not being senior, one of the questions I was going to have is, do you remember anything about the assumptions that were made about the number of vehicles per, you know, unit that were made? And because of course, you know as well as I do, the CEQA is just thrown right out the door pretty much. And so you can't really, in fact, there have been specific laws written specifically to say you can't use traffic as a no-no. Is that the primary source of sort of, you had indicated there's some controversy around that particular, or more contention around that project. Do you see it as more of being on the low income side of the housing, the nature of that, or the potential impact on parking on residents in the adjacent areas?
I think most of the concerns that we have heard is just a feeling that the building's out of scale for Danville, just more of an architectural thing. You know, we don't, since incorporation, we haven't approved any 4-story buildings. We haven't approved any 3-story buildings. Or we approved half a 3-story building a few years back. So it's a new thing, and so people are, it's gonna take a while to get used to it. And then traffic and, all those types of impacts. We did do a traffic study, and there was assumptions made on, given the density and the size of the units, et cetera, there's assumptions made through the standard manuals on what type of trip generation it would have, and so we laid all that out. I think, as you said, technically under SB 330, this Permit Streamlining Acts and what have you, we couldn't deny it based on those, but I think that the developers are willing to work with us, and I think it provides the neighborhood with at least some assurances or some information to go with. So I think it's all of that.
That's great. I mean, that does sound like a real partnership.
I think there's one other thing to mention, because we're talking about like mitigation fees and such, and how to collect those. A lot of times when you move from commercial to residential, the assumptions are actually lower for daily trips, which reduces the actual impact, the traffic impact. So when we do these traffic impact analysis, we're actually getting essentially a negative impact, so we're getting less traffic. And if the development itself isn't having a negative impact, then you should not be collecting fees. So you don't collect mitigation fees if there's not a thing
Right,
to
because if it was
mitigate.
retail, then you'd have VMTs coming to it. There would be that positive, and then you're turning it on its head. That's a very interesting assumption. Yeah, that's great.
And just to follow up on your question about you were talking about the seniors, all the senior projects we're getting. It just seems to be the sweet spot for the developers. They're seeing that as a way, I think, to, maybe there's demand for, in the Danville area or Contra Costa for people wanting to move down. But also, as I said, you can get your density bonuses. You don't have to do any affordable units, so it makes sense from that standpoint.
Yeah.
But all these projects, the problem is that, as you go through the housing element, you had URENA was split between very low, moderate, and above moderate income. So for all these projects, you made an assumption. And since it's 30 units an acre, you could have said they're all low or very low. So for each project, you had to make an assumption. So when these projects come in and they are 30 units an acre, but there's zero affordability, we're all of a sudden, well, we didn't get the moderate, we didn't get the low, we didn't get the very low.
So you didn't fulfill the arena requirement
Right,
necessarily.
so-
So it's going to have to come from somewhere else.
So we depend on our buffer. We created a 15% buffer, but who knows, over the 8 years, we may run into issues in that area.
No, that's a really good observation, because I was thinking, well, this is kind of like a unicorn. You figure out something that's sort of non-controversial, doesn't generate a lot of VMT. I've noticed that you guys placed them very reasonably close to, center of the town, where those residents will have multimodal access to groceries and things like that. You really, in a sense, don't need a whole bunch of vehicles other than for work, of course. So, I mean, but then you counter with that other piece, which is, it's like, well, yeah, I mean, we can build it and it's great, but we still have these numbers that we're gonna have to somehow flush out somewhere. And at some point, we'll get built out, maybe to a point where we have to start saying, no, we can't really take another senior. We need something like this. Yeah.
Anybody else? Okay, let me go to Member Ash.
Yeah. First, a couple of compliments. I always ask questions about routes of regional significance and working with other people, particularly around signal timing. And it appears that you're doing all of that. So way to go. Appreciate that. Also want to give the member from Danville a shout out, because he is awesome representing you, Mr. Carr. So we appreciate having him here. Slightly unrelated, but related to transportation. In Danville, coming from Walnut Creek, south on 680 in the morning, there's a part of 680 that always backs up. But it's not because of an accident. Doesn't seem like it's from a bad accident. And I'm just kind of curious to get your take on what that might be, what could be done as a future CCTA, next measure initiative or whatnot to help do that. And Matt, feel free to weigh in after them. Just love to hear your take.
I'm going to take a little bit of a guess at this, but I'm sure an actual traffic engineer would come up with a better opinion. But just from having driven that road quite a bit, southbound 680, when you have a long stretch of no off-ramps, you tend not to have the same mixing. And then as you hit El Pintado, then El Cerro, then Diablo, you get a lot of on-ramps and off-ramps right back to back. I know that CCTA is actually, and this is where CCTA really hits it. So when you talk about signal timing, when you talk about coordination throughout the routes, this is where CCTA actually has some pretty innovative projects. I know my predecessor was out at GoMentum, I think last week or the week before, working on a bus route where the buses will be using the shoulder of the road, which we hope that as people are stuck in their cars, seeing the bus go faster than them on the shoulder, that they'll take that option and help to relieve some of that congestion. As far as design strategies for how to relieve that congestion, I think that would be better left to an engineer to come up with some strategies on that.
I'm not an engineer, but there is I'm a planner and we have plans. There is a project on the books for auxiliary lanes in that stretch. You saw them be constructed to the south of that in San Ramon. There is also a project on the books to build some more auxiliary lanes, and those are basically, you know, a lane between ramps that can kind of affect some of that mixing that Alan was speaking of. I can't tell you that'll solve the problem, but, you know, in addition to that, we're also outfitting, we're talking about 680 here, we're outfitting 680, you know, kind of with the corridor of the future technology. So one of the Innovate 680 projects is to get that stretch of highway, you know, outfitted with all the fiber and communication devices that it would take to run autonomous vehicles there. So you're going to see some tests. They're running a platoon of connected vehicles in a lane on that corridor just to see what sort of impact that could have.
There's also the option, as you get stuck, you could just pull over into Danville, enjoy breakfast at one of our restaurants.
Exactly.
That'll relieve some of that congestion.
Does he work in
Get a good
economic
meal.
development?
I'm next door.
Are there timing on those, and are those projects funded, Matt? And not the innovation projects, the ramp, side road things.
Well, no, the auxiliary lanes are not funded. What is funded is the TBOS, the bus on shoulder project. There are some mobility hubs going up in the corridor and express bus, but yeah, those auxiliary lanes, they're not part of the Innovate 680 suite of projects. So Innovate has received funding that other projects haven't.
It does seem like coming from the south, Sycamore Valley is for some reason, a big part of the backup. Like it grinds things down, and then feel it all the way down into San Ramon, but I don't know what the causes are either.
And I think we're also looking at, CCTA's got northbound, they're going to be doing a ramp metering program, and so that's going to be coming up, and so hopefully
Yeah.
that will reduce some of that as well.
I meant to mention CARM, which is Coordinated Adaptive Ramp Metering, and this is going to be the first application of that in the Bay Area. We are actually paying Caltrans to install it as part of their ramp metering system. So that should have some impact on the congestion in the corridor, especially in those tight spots.
And the important thing is it's not traditional ramp metering. It's functionally, it's going to be smart ramp metering. So it's going to
It's like a variable spacing between the light, the green lights. That's, you know, in the back of your mind, you always think, well, isn't that how it's always supposed to have worked? But in a sense, no. There's like, you know, high, medium, low, or whatever, and then they shift amongst them based on their own observations or whatever. But this is truly like sort of next level thinking, where there's a range of which they can time that, and they can be aware of what's going on in multiple ramps at the same time and the flow of traffic, so.
Yeah, and
That's great.
our local concern is we just want to make sure that we don't put ourselves in a position where we're backing up more traffic onto the local arterial. That Sycamore.
San Ramon Valley, yeah, exactly.
Well, and the Sycamore overpass that you mentioned gets very, very congested at our commute hours.
Our representative from Danville.
Oh, I've got 15 minutes. Yeah, I have about 8 things, so I'll whittle the list down. I guess as the town plan, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to ask the hard questions or give further props, so I think I'm going to do a little of both. In addition to everything you've seen about the green painting for the bikes, the other really nifty thing that's been done lately is the bulb outs on Harts and the calming, because that is the route that just gets mucked up if there's a wreck on the 680. And the elevated crosswalks and the bulb outs really visually bring you to, wait, I need to be looking for pedestrians. And those are really, really well done. So,
Yeah, those turned out to be done very well. I think the bulb outs, the high visibility paint, the RFBs. In fact, we did a post construction survey at 2 of the intersections, Harts and Prospect, Harts and Linda Mesa, which are the 2 ones of major concern for us along that route. And what we did was we basically wanted to see what was the speeds as cars were going through the intersection. We did it for anywhere between 11 and 14 days. The 85th percentile, so our critical speed, was anywhere between 18 and 22 miles an hour, which is awesome in a 25 zone. So I can bet that any of you, if you went back to your traffic engineers or managers and said, that the speeds on a 25 mile an hour zone through downtown over a near 2-week period was between 18 and 22 miles an hour, that's absolutely amazing. That's much safer for cyclists, much safer for pedestrians. If you look at the fatality rate for auto-ped collisions, if you're at 30 miles an hour, it's about 1 in 10. When you're at 25, I think it drops to 3%, so 3 out of 100. And when you're at 20 miles an hour, it's about 1%. So when you're talking about saving lives from an engineering standpoint, and this is, again, where I have to give the kudos to Andy Dillard, our now CCTA rep, a lot of effort went into a lot of these designs that really, truly make it safer for people walking, riding, hiking, running, and driving a car.
and I will say you will make my wife's evening when I tell her that all of the Iron Horse Trail crossings are going to have RFBs, because she comes in and yells at me, you guys need to put those flashing rectangles, they're terrible, and there's a boatload of them. So that's really good to hear. The other one that maybe folks wouldn't be maybe is obvious to recognize, I'll tell on myself because I was guilty. When we re-slurry sealed, I guess at that point it's San Ramon Valley Boulevard, south of where it intersects with Railroad, there were 3 crosswalks, 2 at intersections with lights, very obvious. There was one in the middle. The paint was faded. There was no real indication that would be a crosswalk. And I got a really stinky look from one of my fellow gym mates who I didn't see her, and I was already about to go into the crosswalk. And then I saw her the next time at the gym and apologized. And I noticed when we re-slurry sealed, that particular crosswalk went away.
Yeah, there was careful consideration, because we do want to make pedestrian crossings safe. And if you look, there's a decent body of work that's showing evidence that crosswalks, mid-segment crosswalks that have no lights, have no control devices are very dangerous for pedestrians.
Right.
That crosswalk was actually located, I think, about 210 feet away from a controlled crosswalk, and then another 250 feet from another controlled crosswalk. Right. And so we also don't want to create a situation where people see crosswalk, 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 and they get fatigued by that. And so we felt that was the best design. And yeah, we did get some negative feedback from the public, but we also were getting feedback that that crossing was one where cars just didn't seem to see people as they went through. So we believe in holding those 2 that are much safer.
No, I'm in that number. And like I said, I will self-testify that I missed a pedestrian in that, not because I don't try to look, but it is one of those. Maybe the difficult question, you know, Member Ash always asks the question about coordination. There's an interesting coordination problem in Danville where you have what I understand would be traffic lights controlled by Caltrans at Sycamore Valley. Then you go down, 100 feet past the northbound on and off ramps, northbound on and off ramps, and then another 100 feet or so is Camino Ramon. And those lights sometimes seem to maybe not sync up, and was it a fatality accident a couple of weeks ago? A fairly serious one. Is there any opportunity space there? How do we make sure those lights don't compete with each other and cause trouble unintentionally?
Yeah, so as part of the Transportation Department for the town of Danville, we do review all accidents, specifically fatalities. And in this case, it's pretty clear that the signal timing coordination were not a factor in that collision based on the officer's investigation. That said, you're 100% right. Those roads are very close together. So if you haven't been to Sycamore and 680 overcrossing, you've got the off-ramp, which is maybe 50 feet off the linear path of the roadway. And then, like Mr. Carset said, it's probably another 100 feet and you're hitting Camino Ramon. So in an area, in an arterial that goes 10,000 plus cars a day, to have those intersections back to back during commute hour are really, really challenging. So we are hoping that through some of these smart signal projects that we can put some of these controls, these detection measures, the video detection on some of those Caltrans lights, work with Caltrans. But in the meantime, and what we do is we do work with Caltrans, and they will adjust their signal timing. We'll adjust our delays and our minimum greens to make sure that we're doing the best we can. But frankly, when all directions at those intersections are hitting red lights at a very high percentage, it just tells us that it's a very congested intersection. And what would be great is if we could redirect traffic to other locations. I used to live right in that area, and sometimes it was just better to go south and hit Crow Canyon Road, and instead of dealing with the mess that was there. If we can get more people on bikes, buses, and frankly their feet, that's going to relieve the congestion of those intersections as well, because what we see in the midday is we really don't have a signal problem. It's really for that 30 minutes to an hour in the morning when school and commute overlap.
And I'll end with this one. You made mention of the batteries. I was intrigued. I went back and checked. PG&E had 5 power outages, same exact 472 homes in a 13-week period, ranging anywhere from 2 hours, hour and a half to 4 hours. So, you know, it's the most expensive, crappy electricity in the country in terms of its reliability, and the ability to have backups because of the frequency that we're seeing that is, as a resident, very pleasing to hear. So, good. And I'll stop there.
Okay, I had a couple questions. So, in terms of like going back to the housing and the time period for the checklist, you know, there were these, you know, arenas and a whole bunch of kind of levers that were pushed, where, you know, you weren't seeing a lot of, you know, very low housing permitting, but it did look like your ADU measures were really taking, you know, having an impact. So I guess going forward, what were kind of some of the measures that you are looking at for attracting the very low and low income housing, and potentially, you know, are there measures in place for the ADUs to make sure that they're not just a bungalow for, you know, a single family home, and rather, you know, they're actually being rented out?
Well, that's a difficult question, because it's a lot of it is outside of our control, because we've had, there's a project called the Lexon Riverwalk that was a 2.5-story, 144-unit apartment project that was right there on Diablo Road, right by the southbound on-ramp. And that was a density bonus project, and it was 45 units an acre. And they had to do 10 very low units, and the rest are market rate, and they're renting for $4,000 or $5,000 a month. So even at 40 units an acre, just based on density, we're not getting affordable by design. Where we do get the affordable is with the ADUs, because of the way the state of California allows you to count those. And so what we have done is we have our own inclusionary housing ordinance where you do a certain percentage of units at certain affordable levels, and you get, density bonus or what have you. And one of the things that we do is you can actually incorporate ADUs into 25% of your homes, and that qualifies you. That satisfies your affordable housing requirement, and those are deed restricted to be rented to lower income households. We don't really have much control over the life of the ADUs, who they are rented, if they are rented at all. But they are a housing stock that's out there, and frankly, that is where we're getting most of our low and very low. We used some grant money a few years ago to develop our own ADU program. We call it our Garden Cottage program, where we went out and hired architects to develop ADU plans. And so they're already designed, architecturally designed, they're already plan checked and engineered, so somebody can come in and show us a site plan of where they want to put it, save all their money on engineering and architectural fees. And so that's been a program that's had some success. So we are a community. Last night at this time, I was at the city council meeting talking about updating our ADU ordinance again for the third time since 2020, I think, because the state laws keep changing. But ADUs are something that we've always been, I think, actually a little bit ahead of the curve as far as at the state level, that we've always tried to encourage, because in Danville, they are seen as a good way to incorporate housing into neighborhoods without really changing the character of a neighborhood.
Yeah, that's a really cool program to be able to kind of do a cut and paste. My next question was back on the checklist. There was a mention of Green Valley Creek Trail, and I was wondering what the status was on that, because it did look like a really good connector for the parks and the schools and in the downtown area.
Which page is that?
Chapter 4, 26.
I think the Green Valley Creek is the Diablo. That's what the creek is called. Sorry about that. The Green Valley Creek is the creek that the Diablo Road Trail crosses.
Gotcha.
And so that's,
okay.
that's the one that's at the I guess, the south side of the roadway on Diablo Road.
Gotcha. Okay, so that was
We
the
just-
project that you're
From a
completing
project, we
that
just call it the
section.
Diablo Road Project, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay, that makes sense. And then just finally, kudos to your traffics program. Wish that was implemented all over the county. So that's a Measure J funded. So that's pretty much permanent and through the end of Measure J. I have kind of a two-part question. So if you have, let's say, your trails are getting, completed, especially this Mount Diablo Trail next winter. What if you have a huge drop in bus users because they're using your trails? Would you then, use that Measure J money for other things? Is that something that's fluid, where you can move the money from, something, a bucket here to another bucket?
The first part of the question, we don't really expect a drop in users. That wouldn't be a path for a lot of people that are using the bus program to go to school. So we don't think that we're going to see that type of a drop. It tends to be more used for recreational users than it is for the school commute.
Gotcha.
As far as the funding, this is something that, and the kudos really goes to Chris Weeks and Kelly Fahey over at the City of Saramone. They administer the program, and they do a phenomenal job. I mean, they are very good community partners in this, and they do very well in fact, the additions of our school buses is because of the work that they do in implementing this program and getting support and actually getting our residents to ask for more bus lines. You can't implement bus lines where no one's going to use them. And so they do a good job working with our district to provide bus services to the schools throughout the district. So that's San Ramon, Danville, and portions of Alamo. As far as moving funding around, I don't really have a good answer for you, and I don't really see that program shrinking based on the community feedback that we're getting.
Gotcha. So maybe my question, kind of building on that might be for Matt, would be how would we build like a traffic type program in other sections of the county, like West County, for example?
Yeah, so that's something that, San Ramon Valley and La Miranda carved out during the development of Measure J. And that's why I was saying, the subregions can do things differently, can apply money to different pots, and that's what the Southwest region decided to do with some of their, kind of discretionary Measure J funds. So as part of a new expenditure plan, we're already talking about expanding school bus programs around the county. So it'll be kind of what parts of the county are interested. If they so choose, they can direct Measure J or future Measure money towards a program.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. All right. Any other questions or comments from the members?
I remembered the question I forgot. The picture of the very first housing, if you do the 3D rendering, noise abatement from the freeway, because I think you mentioned that it's underneath 680. So I think somebody from the public was worried about noise. So is there, with Caltrans or with the project, or I was even wondering at that height, just the residents are going to complain about noise?
The interior noise would just be handled through building code requirements. There would be noise studies done, and they would have to build walls and windows and what have you to certain standards that would address noise concerns.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I think the concern from the public was that they wanted a sound wall.
That was at the tree.
But they're building something new underneath the freeway, and the freeway doesn't have a sound wall, does it?
There is a stretch there where there is no sound wall.
Yeah, that was treat.
No, it was treat, but I'm wondering, are these residents going to be worried about the freeway noise?
Yeah, some of the exterior patio areas potentially is going to, be noise impacted. They may put up, clear plastic screens and that type of thing. But the interiors, it's just a standard building code requirement. The interiors will be designed such, the walls and insulation and window design will be designed to mitigate the noise.
You're right, and some of the construction is pretty good when it comes to noise, but I'm thinking if 680 gets developed again, it's just those sound barriers are very important to the residents. That's the final comment for any future 680, like those lane expansions. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, and I'll second the motion.
Oh, first, let me ask if we've received any written public comments.
Member Shakiran has a question on Zoom.
Okay, very good. Member Shakiran.
Hi, everyone, and thank you both, David and Alan, for your wonderful, very comprehensive presentation. I just have two observations, and I think Alan probably could expand on this. When one of my colleagues on the panel asked about traffic signals and the traffic signal coordination in Danville and the infrastructure, you always have had signal interconnect between the intersections. It's just that it was the old system. We've always had the copper interconnect. And now with this new project, you are upgrading to fiber. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and then the other component of your entire signal system is that you do have capability in your office to monitor all the traffic signals in Danville, which means it helps you with seeing the problems and doing diagnostics and, if needed, calling up the county maintenance. And so that way you get a much quicker action because you do have the capability to monitor all the signals. It's the Centrac system, am I right?
She's right, and the reason I'm smiling so much is Nazi effectively was my trainer on several of these, so she's kind of letting that cat out of the bag that we would sit in the office and she'd show me how to work the Centrac system. And as far as signal coordination, we have them running on free. We can monitor them all, so if a signal goes down, we're going to know it. And then we can get our maintenance crew out there. As far as coordination though, and that's where you basically try to have a peloton effect where you get a group of cars all moving together without delay, without stopping. We don't yet have that. What we're hoping is that through this Smart Signal projects, one of the things that we're going to be doing is we're going to be moving to Centrax Mobility, which has an easier to use interface. Also with some of our cameras, there's the option, should we have the funding to do so, to have them as a service do signal coordination. And we can do it, you can do it signal by signal. So in other words, we don't have to do it on all of our local roads, but we could do it on the boulevard and we could do it on Comunidad Sahara and those to help relieve some of that congestion and get that peloton effect that would be frankly very, very good on those arterials. But Mrs. Shakiran is right, and she's also right to remind me how little I know and how much she continues to teach me.
No, that was not my intention, but one other observation, I think answering the question about ramp metering. I believe Caltrans years ago, and I'm talking about at least 20 years ago, they had a project, ramp metering project along 680, and they did install some of the infrastructure underground. But because there wasn't any consensus among the cities along that section of I-680, they could not finish the project. It was really political. Until the cities come to a consensus to allow ramp metering to be fully functional, they pretty much stopped and did not finish. But I think a lot of the infrastructure is already in place. Thank you, Alan and David, both.
All right, now I'll go to Emily, if we have any written public comments.
We do not have any written public comments, virtual public comments, or in-person public comments.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I think it's tradition, since Danville is represented, that I would make a motion that we recommend approval of the Measure J checklist for release to source funding.
And I'd like to second that. Member Esquivel, did you second that?
Yes.
Thank you. Emily, could you please conduct a roll call?
Member Ash,
Aye.
Member Carr,
Aye.
Member Erickson,
Aye.
Member Esquivel,
Yes.
Member Miller,
Aye.
Member Patel,
Yes.
Member Saunders,
Yes.
Member Shakiran,
Yes.
Member Stark,
Yes.
Vice Chair Essel Sego,
Aye.
Chair Lovejoy.
Aye.
All right, motion passes unanimously with members Bankert, James, Vidantham, and Wayne absent.
Thank you again for your presentation and our very engaged group of questions. So that concludes our regular agenda items. The next item on the agenda is member and staff comments. Do any of the committee members have, or staff have anything they would like to share? Member Ash.
I've got a question for Matt because Richmond isn't represented here, but at the interchange of 580 going to the bridge in Richmond, there is a huge backup, and I've had to go there one morning this week and one morning last week at like 9 a.m., and it took me 32 minutes one day and 48 minutes the other to go 0.2 of a mile before I could make a turn that was not necessarily recommended, including a use of a sidewalk and some rampways to keep it limited there. And it's clearly like there are cars in all directions blocking the box and all of that. And I just didn't know if people were aware of it, what you're doing about it. You probably are because you're so good. But I really wanted to highlight it because I think it has literally been my worst traffic experience in all of Contra Costa, and I travel down Ignacio every day, and that's pretty bad, but this was like, you just couldn't move.
I've been stuck in it myself. So you're going to see a lot of improvement. Well, you're going to see there's a lot of activity about to happen in that area. It's called RSR Forward, Richmond San Rafael Bridge Forward. They're going to remove the entire toll plaza, so it'll be open road tolling. The main problem right now is not the bike path. The main problem is that it's going from 3 lanes to 2 lanes. Even without the bike path, there are only 2 lanes. So anytime you go from 3 lanes to 2 lanes, and really it's 3 lanes to 6 down to 2, that's your problem. So with the removal of the toll plaza, there will be a more gradual tapered merge there. So you should see that smooth out a little bit. There will also be an HOV lane brought back, so the 3rd lane will be an HOV lane, so they will, have a little preferential treatment to get through all that, including buses, and bus service has come and gone on that. That AC, right now, Golden Gate provides good service across the bridge, but AC Transit used to provide it from Berkeley, Albany, but they stopped because they just sat in traffic. So we think with the changes that are coming about, mostly with the toll plaza, you're going to see some improvements. When they take the bike lane out during the commute, only when there's an accident will you see a difference. I think the real improvement is going to be the removal of the toll plaza.
And can anything be done at the intersection? Like it's.
So are you talking about Richmond Parkway or?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that interchange will be redesigned as well.
Thank you.
In addition to bike access improvements to the bridge itself. Within the next year, you'll see the toll plaza being removed.
Any other comments? Committee member comments? No, okay. Is there anybody from the public who would like to speak?
We have no public comments.
The next item is correspondence and communications, which we have none. If there are any topics that members would like agendized for future agenda, please raise your hand.
I don't know if it's new, because I thought you mentioned you were going to do it, and maybe it happened last month when I was absent, but you offered an intriguing topic of traffic's back, the patterns are very different, and we'll have a meeting where we talk about that. And when I think about the 680, where I get on and off at El Cerro, the traffic's very different. When it backs up is different, how it backs up is different. In this post-COVID world, kind of what are we learning in terms of all of this change in how traffic shows up and doesn't?
Yeah, we do have that as a topic. You didn't miss it. It's tough to really fully define it. So I think we could bring you information that could start a conversation. Whether we'll be able to fully tell you what is going on with traffic, we kind of keep pushing that conversation out because things keep changing, but I think you're right. It deserves a conversation. We have access to data. We can present that to you and try and make some sense out of what's going on.
Okay, any other items to be agendized? No. So please note that the holidays, we have November and December meetings are combined and will be held December 10th. And with that, the meeting is adjourned at 8:13.